Alright everyone, we start off today with an article that perfectly represents lie by omission and lie by structure, as well as proving a point which has been made by many people. Elon Musk has been pushing this. Of course, right now he's considering a tender offer for Twitter, and what that means effectively is picking off the actual shareholders, entirely bypassing the board of directors of Twitter. And if he can gain enough Twitter stock between him and other people who he's lumped into sort of a confederacy idea, they've raised, $40+ billion, so more than Twitter's worth by a significant amount. All they have to do now is go to individual shareholders and say, look, fuck the board of directors. You can sell to me directly or any of these other groups, and they're sort of a semi-collective holding. It would install Elon Musk as the leader of Twitter. We'll pay you 30-40% above what your shares are worth. If I've held on to Twitter stock for quite some time, and I've seen the stock price dwindle, and I'm getting a sweetheart deal, effectively a golden parachute, if I think the site's going to crumble and I think Elon Musk will be successful, I'll sell to him. I'll get myself out of the line of fire. I'll probably sell to him anyway just because the profitability's there. Even after paying the taxes on the gains, you're going to make out like a bandit, you make millions of dollars. Anyway, this particular article, link in the description, is a perfect example of the disingenuous, false analysis that we've seen of tech bias and tech censorship throughout time. Look at it for yourself. You'll have to have the time to read the whole thing, but I'll give it to you in a nutshell. According to this analysis by The Hill, they looked at a slew of accounts that were Republican. Now, I know Republican and conservative and anti-com sort of free speech is amorphous. They don't always overlap. There are neocons that like Mitt Romney or Liz Cheney. They're never going to get banned. Then likewise, there are Democrats that they studied. That doesn't necessarily mean left. It could mean sweater liberal. It could mean like a union Democrat, or someone who's just partisan or is considered to be liberal according to the analysis. If you dig deeper into the difference between ideology and partisanship, using these categories maybe is not the best way to go about it, but we'll use that analysis anyway because it does show a very stark difference that completely countermands the article's own premise. Now, if you look at the article itself, title, first paragraph and stuff, basically you're told there is no bias. Elon Musk is crazy, you're all conspiracy theorists. Several paragraphs into the article, though, you learn something astonishing, which is that of those samples that they analyzed, 35.6% of those that they had labeled Republican or vaguely conservative had been banned over that course of time by Twitter. Only 7.7% of those labeled Democrats were banned. The average person looking at this, and the average person won't read that far into the article, hence the lie by structure. I've spoken of this before. You take what you don't want people to absorb from the news story, even if it's totally true, and you bury it in the sum and substance of the article halfway down, even though it completely undermines your own premise. You want the reader to effectively read the title, the first few sentences or paragraphs, and then they don't even know that exists within the article. It is a form of lying. You are misrepresenting reality. Your headline is effectively a lie because your own article countermands it. What do? Instead of admitting, hey, by the way, you've read this far down in the article, whoops, we were completely wrong. Actually, there is a systemic bias on Twitter for political reasons. They say, no. Really, we looked at additional data and we determined that it was because Republicans were just more likely to share out misinformation. How do you define misinformation? That would be the problem. Is there a correlation between that specific material being shared out or spoken of and the actual bans? I think that you'll find if you were to dig deeper into their deeper dig of analysis, you'd find that correlation doesn't exist. I think that you'd find that this is the result of differential enforcement because Twitter, yes, indeed, has a political bias. They don't like the populist right because the populist right criticizes censorship. They want to have an echo chamber site in which mainline, dry, boring commentary coexists with topical dumpster fire sort of fighting, sort of trolling and drama. They don't want the political side of it, partially because of pressure from people like Amy Klobuchar in Congress. It's effectively soft fascism. Now, before I go further into this, because I think that the structure of the article as a lie is very telling. This is not the first time that we've seen this. Keep in mind, if you're watching this video on YouTube, down below there will be a pinned comment with links to other video hosting sites that I use. Keep in mind that I make exclusive material every day on those platforms that does not go on YouTube. Again, just had a child, so the schedule's a little bit more sporadic lately. Might not be quite as high energy. Definitely upped my caffeine intake recently, but I'm going through it. So, and there will soon probably be several literary updates taking us out to the 400th edition of my literary work. That'll be a huge announcement, by the way, when that happens. Of course, those videos are not political. Those go on YouTube too. YouTube's algorithms are okay for non-political, non-news content, as long as there aren't a lot of competing priority accounts. Thankfully, there aren't many priority accounts that deal with spiritual issues. The Hill here, and the Hill is systemically biased as well, basically running cover against Elon Musk here. I think that the Hill, certainly WAPO at this point, and many other groups are genuinely scared that Elon Musk will go through with this and buy Twitter. And part of the reason why is because even though he is not a free speech warrior, he's in it mostly for the dosh, for the money. He's a multi-billionaire. Of course, he's in it for personal profit mainly. But he may have cracked the code that if Twitter becomes the only outlier, freer speech site among tech giants that have become more and more censorious, all of a sudden there's going to be a massive influx of people to Twitter. The problem is that imagine that you've spent years saying we need to do more algorithmic censorship. We need to do more to fight disinfo. Again, whatever the hell that happens to mean at the time. We need more regulation, etc., etc., etc. And the one site that goes in the other direction suddenly becomes much more profitable and much more powerful, while everyone else is sliding backwards or stagnating. That doesn't really look good for your argument for censorship. If these other sites then sense that, if they're smart, if they're motivated by profit as opposed to namby-pambying with the government, they will then be pulled in that direction too. It will change the paradigm. The tech paradigm will begin going back in the other direction. And when Twitter weathers the hit pieces, still has more stock value, is doing better, is gaining users, and is getting stronger, and there's no systemic cultural breakdown, and Russia doesn't invade Alaska, and people aren't becoming a bunch of Nazis and all of these other fantastic boogeymen that have been dreamed up by the so-called anti-disinfo, which is anti-free speech crowd, when Robert Reich and Amy Klobuchar and Joe Biden and all these other morons and freaks and weirdos are proven wrong, when that doesn't happen, and when a mainline, richest man in the world, billionaire, multi-billionaire, is fronting that and making huge profits doing so, it'll destroy their arguments. Their arguments for censorship will fall apart when the sky doesn't fall if Twitter has less censorship. Because the whole idea is that despite years and years of more and more and more and more and more bans and censorship and algorithmic distortion, despite the fact that multi-billionaires and major world governments have led this mass effort against free expression, there's still further to go. There's still a problem on the internet we need to take care of. Oh, we need more regulation. You've got big tech firms and legacy media sites that effectively had been saying hands off government, let corporations do it. A free market of ideas is run by private individuals. All of a sudden, I see a huge number of pieces arguing for legislation, literally attempts to undermine the First Amendment in the modern public square at the government level. I guess the idea is that even the corporations that self-censor massively are not doing enough. Elon Musk knows he can make money doing the opposite. And he's presumably aware that the constitutional argument for regulation of big tech is probably not going to happen outside of the realm of trust busting, outside of the realm of the fiscal. The government cannot make any real legal argument to compel tech sites to begin banning people for lawful speech. I don't think that argument would hold muster with any federal court, including the very far left ones in the United States. And so they're scared. And so they're trying to preemptively kneecap Elon Musk because they're afraid that he'll actually end up winning here. He'll take over Twitter and he will transform the site. I don't care about the edit button bullshit and all of this other stuff that he has sidelined himself with. The only thing that I care about is that Twitter should have some sort of mechanism by which people who have been wrongfully banned can actually appeal that. And I mean like an actual appeal as opposed to, hey, I keep getting these strikes because of bad faith actors false flagging me, and then a bot bounced my appeal request, which is what happens currently on Twitter. Their blocking system is a joke. Their flagging system is a joke. Their TOS are a goddamn joke. It's no wonder that Twitter has been losing steam. It's no wonder that Twitter never became one of the truly bigger ones. It's a huge site, but it's not Google. It's not Apple. It's not Instagram. It's not YouTube, a subsidiary of Google. It's not Amazon. It's the weakest of the big tech sites. It's also the cheapest, which is why Musk is going after it. I think he's likely to be successful. I think that he will transform it into a less censored site. It won't be like new tech. It's not going to be like Gab or something like that, but it will certainly be better, and it will be much more profitable. And so they keep making these hit pieces in which they misrepresent the data that they themselves self-admit to, covering it up with a facade of high-sounding analysis that doesn't even really make sense when you think about it, and even countermands their own article titles. That's about all. Peace out.